Hello. Welcome to this bite-size session for Insight Training. My name is Nikki Clough. I'm delighted to be with you to bring you a skills topic. In fact, we quite often offer you a technical topic and occasionally a bit of skills. And the subject we've chosen is feedback, which is something that comes up a lot. And in fact, I would say in any skills program that we run for our clients, it is the most requested element, whether we're running a session for partners, managers, or more junior members of staff, how to handle feedback, how to get more feedback, perhaps, but typically it's how to deliver feedback and how to deliver constructive feedback in particular. So let me share some slides with you. And yeah, I've headed the topic there. Can I give you some feedback? And I'm curious as I say that to wonder how that's landed with you. So let's think about that. Anyway, here's the topics that I'm gonna look at, and we're gonna certainly offer you a simple feedback model, but we're gonna think about why feedback is so important, development in particular. And then just I kind of in this short session, it's just kind of okay. Let's give some examples. Let's think about why people do avoid feedback, particularly hard feedback, but sometimes positive feedback as well, and what you can do about it. Some context first. You sometimes hear this phrase, feedback is a gift. And I agree with that. Feedback is a gift that should be freely given. Like any gifts, including unwanted Christmas presents, however, what you do with the gift, whether you take it and do anything about it, it's personal. It's up to you. But you know, if you never have it, then that can be a problem. But it doesn't always feel like a gift, does it? And that's a question that I put on the opening slide there. Can I give you some feedback? Typically makes people worry and makes people, and we have an inbuilt negativity bias, and people often just think, oh no, bad news coming. And many people, when they want to talk about feedback, it's because they see feedback and giving other people feedback. Maybe they've had a bad experience themselves and they view it as what I might refer to as a difficult situation or a challenging conversation. Why is that? What gives you those feelings of discomfort? And typically it's the fear of the unknown. What might happen during the conversation when you've given the feedback, which maybe a difficult message sometimes. And usually the unknown is not the facts of what you're giving feedback on, because they are normally unknown. It's how the other person is going to react emotionally. It's the feelings that might come up in that other person and in potentially also in yourself. Those are unpredictable and those can make us feel uncomfortable. And there's good reason for that. I think it's always worth really recognizing why that happens. And we are wired, our survival brain, if you like, is wired to protect us. And just in a very, very oversimplified fashion, neurologically, we're wired to go towards the good thing, the reward, and shy away from the bad thing, from the threat. And if there's something that makes us feel uncomfortable and we've reacted to, then our instinct is that fight or flight, or sometimes you can add in there freeze. And we can't help that. That our brains kick in really quickly, because obviously that kept us alive. The challenge is getting your brain in the place of like, okay, yeah, I might be feeling uncomfortable, but let's have a think about this. How can I handle this situation? And actually, neurologically, it's now been discovered, a different part of your brain lights up that actually you can control much more. So it's about self-awareness and it's about control. So those uncomfortable feelings, first thing is give yourself a break. That can be normal. But let's apply that to feedback and why people avoid feedback. And there's some fantastic work by a lady called Anne Taylor, who's lots of work, but there's a fantastic, I'll show you this book called Soft Skills, Hard Results, which I particularly dip into from time to time. And certainly the work that I do is okay, how can we develop soft skills for people who might be quite analytical, more than people, if you like. And here are some common reasons that Anne has found, and I would concur, people avoid feedback. Have a look at some of these. Demotivate them. I need them to be motivated. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't know how to deliver the feedback. What if I get it wrong? I want people to like me. I haven't got time. They should know already. Too many other things to do. I meant to. I didn't get round to it. Well, I worked it out for myself. So should they. Well, if they didn't get it right the first time, they didn't get my explanation the first time, why would they when I'm explaining again or feeding back again? I don't know if any of those chime with you. Believe it or not, people don't always, it's not always the constructive or I've used the word constructive there for hard, but very deliberately. People also avoid positive feedback. I've used the word here affirmative. Don't any of these chime with you? To give them a pay rise. I have to promote them. They should do their job anyway. Go to the heads. Well, I didn't get any praise. Why would somebody else need that? This is a client said this to me just the other day, that it's just not part of our culture. We're American. Which, apologies for Americans out there, just made me laugh slightly. Well, you should know they've done their work. Again, I don't know how to do it. Give that feedback. Could get it wrong. And I've said thanks. Why do they need anything else? Again, opportunity missed. So I don't know if that's chimed with you. I'm going to come back to each of these at the end of this session and actually, talk about what you can do with in each of those situations. But first, why is feedback so important to development? And it's absolutely crucial. And this is something called the Johari window, which was developed by a couple of occupational psychologists, one called Johnson and one called Harrison, I believe. This Johari window. And what they've said is very simply, there are things that you know and everybody else knows, and that's in the arena, obvious to everybody. There are things that you know, but other people don't, that perhaps you're keeping hidden under what they would call the facade. You're keeping that inside, you decided not to share that. But there'll also be things that other people know, but you don't, and that's your blind spot. And at the end of the day, what we also will have is things that you don't know and other people don't know either, the unknown area. But that's where the development happens, isn't it? Because if we push into that area, things that we don't know we can do yet, that's really important, that word yet, that's where we push on and we progress and we develop. And the idea is that if we kind of expand, if you like, our arena, we're willing to open ourselves up, receive feedback, and push into our blind spot, so get feedback about things that we don't know, then we're going to shrink that unknown area. We're going to increase the development that we get. Really, really important, because people need to move on. And it's so important for motivation. I mentioned motivation very quickly earlier. Motivation isn't about making people happy. Motivation is getting people to do willingly and well what has to be done, to make them bring their full self and put full effort and energy into what they do. And a really important part of motivation, we can think about extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. And we think about kind of, it's a bit carrot and stick, I guess, but the most important motivation is, I would argue, intrinsic motivation, what comes from within. And there have been three things that have been found to have the biggest impact. Autonomy, so not being micromanaged and having some sense of your own destiny is very important. Purpose is really important. So feeling like you're contributing to an overall goal. But mastery is another part of it. And mastery is about an element of challenge, an element of doing something a bit more difficult. And it's an element of moving forward, developing and achieving a skill. So important. We're talking to so many clients. I'm going to give in so many firms, going to give examples of perhaps, I don't know, maybe more junior people in the workplace. And, oh, well, they won't work late. I'm not saying that's always a good thing, but they won't finish jobs. They don't want to do anything difficult. They need to be a bit mollycoddled. I can't give them feedback. It's uncomfortable. I might upset them. This younger generation, perhaps maybe doesn't like to be upset. When we actually drill down into what's important, development is important to not only your firm in terms of increasing a skill level, but also to their motivation. The more motivated they are, the more likely it is they're going to bring more effort and energy to what they do, which is a win-win for everybody. So important for development, massively important for motivation. So how do you go about it? How do you go about giving feedback effectively? Now, I've got more to say than I can possibly fit into this short session. So I'm just going to offer you a simple model, which actually I have used so often over the years and massively has helped me. And I think, like any model, if you can have a little mnemonic to help you remember that, then that's going to be good, isn't it? And the one that I'm going to go for here, if you can see, spells AID. To give a decent bit of feedback, it is worth putting a little bit of prep in. And actually, it's worth coming to the facts rather than the emotions, because that's the bit that makes stuff difficult. So starting off with the action, what it was specifically that you're giving somebody feedback upon. You arrived late for work on a consistent basis. You came back with the audit file on a Friday, or you hadn't finished the piece of work, you hadn't completed this test, you hadn't dealt with this client's query. I asked you to phone the client and you just sent them an email. It's coming quite a bit. Whatever it might be, what is it that you want to give the person some feedback on, that you want them to do differently, say? Then what's the impact? And the impact needs to be on you. You don't know what's in their head. You can now explain the impact it's had on you or on the team or on the completion of the work. Be very clear on that, but do not say you were late for work, you're a lazy person, you don't know that. You can say you were late for work and this gave me a poor impression in terms of your timekeeping, or this meant that the rest of the team had to cover for you until you arrived. So you give the fact and the impact on you personally or something that you've seen. And then you go on to say, this is what I want you to do. Carry on doing if it's affirmative, positive feedback. This is the positive effect it's had, or this is what I want you to do differently in the future. So that simple model, those elements, and it takes the emotions a little bit out of it. It makes it very factual. It's particularly useful, I think, for hard or constructive feedback. And really critical, this sort of way to make this work is we've got to think about how it's delivered. And there's lots of things to say about, I would always say a conversation is usually much better than a timely conversation at that, and much timelier than written feedback. But key is going to be assertiveness. We talked about just showing the sort of assertiveness balance here in between being passive, kind of just rolling over. And this is where we're kind of retreating from maybe not giving any feedback at all, to aggressive, just kind of being very firm about your view with the person. So really pushing your view, but not really thinking about them. Assertiveness, assertive behavior, assertive communication is all about clarity and respect. So stating clearly and honestly what you want, think and feel, but you are also thinking about the feelings of the other person. But that doesn't mean you don't give the feedback and worried about upsetting them. That'll be passive. And when we're talking about assertive behavior, we think about three things. And the first step will always be to listen to the other person. Now, that means properly listening and hearing what they're saying to you, not just taking turns to speak. So listening carefully to what's being said and demonstrating that you understand before going on to clearly state what you're thinking or feeling, and then saying what you want to do going forward. And using that simple feedback model here means that you get them, perhaps, this I think is such a helpful tip, particularly with hard feedback, to maybe get them to self-assess first. And most people know. It's unusual to have to break news of poor behaviour to somebody. It can happen, but usually it's, if they don't know, it's because you haven't set clear objectives at the beginning and your expectations haven't been clear. But asking somebody about, oh, could you reflect on, okay, so you've just finished the audit of ABC Limited. How was it? How'd you get on? What would how would you approach it differently? Maybe that's a great question to perhaps ask. And most people will give you an honest answer, and that breaks down that awkwardness of, oh gosh, what if this message upsets them? Because mostly people know. Yeah, can we have a chat about your timekeeping? And most people are not going to be unaware, perhaps, that they've turned up late for work. So get them and properly listen to them and understand maybe what's going on. And there may be information there that's pertinent, maybe reasons why something hasn't been finished, or the timekeeping has been poor. The common one, we've just heard this a lot from people at the moment. Oh, I want them to ring the client and they'll always carry on emailing. Well, what is it? What is it that's stopping them picking up the phone? How can you help with that? So it ends up being a conversation, but don't get away from the fact, even if there are reasons, you still say, okay, well, I still need you to ring the client. This is what I need you to do. And if you don't, then, I'm concerned the client hasn't clearly heard the message, or there's a delay in the response, which actually, if we spoke to them, we might be able to get that resolved clearly. So what I want you to do is to phone the client. What can I do to support you in that? Becomes a conversation rather than a niggle and a festering resentment, perhaps, about the other person's behaviour that they're not changing. So those are some things then I'm offering you in terms of why feedback's important, development, motivation, absolutely key, how to do it, think about action, impact, do or do differently, and think about assertive communication and self-assessment. So in that light, we go back to some of these common reasons for people not offering feedback. So it will demotivate them. Well, we just, no, it won't. It's the opposite is true. Feedback and noticing what somebody's done and giving them feedback on it is critical for motivation, and people feel motivated when somebody notices how they performed. You don't want to hurt their feelings. Well, their feelings are up to them. And if it's a tough message and they're upset about it, they're upset about the message, not about you. And actually, it's usually tough messages are worse when we don't communicate them quickly. And again, they fester, and people, it's very rare that it will sort itself out by themselves. So let's get on with it. I don't know how to do it. What if I get it wrong? We're all human. Giving you a model to use. We are all human, and actually, yeah, it's no bad thing for people to say, look, actually, I'm thinking about this conversation, especially if it's tough feedback. When you say I'm worried, and I might not get this perfect, people know that you're worried because you perhaps care about them. That's not a bad message. There's no what that you think about the lowering of the facade. Sometimes actually letting other people know that you find things like people management difficult sometimes, because it is. That's fantastic for people to know that you've had to work at it too. You want people to like you, not really your job. Yeah, sure, people, if people do like you, lovely. But if you've taken the management position, you're more senior in your organization, you step up. It's not about people liking you, it's about helping to get the job done. And that's really important for motivation. You don't have time, it will save you time. Development and motivation is going to save you time rather than take you time. It takes a bit of time now, but it will pay forward. They should know better already. Well, they clearly don't. And therefore more important for you to grasp that and have that conversation. You've got too many other things to do. Again, this is a time saver in the end. I meant to, I didn't get around to it. Well, that's a clear sign. If that's you, that's a clear sign that you're feeling it's a bit uncomfortable and you're putting off the hard stuff. Yeah, so that's a reasonable thing that people do, but recognize that's what you're doing and grasp the nettle. Well, I worked it out for myself, and so do they. Well, things have changed. We're in a different generation now in the workplace, and people have different expectations. And younger generations now have been taught, if they don't know something, ask a question. Us older generations have taught them that. Nothing wrong with them working out for themselves. Actually, autonomy is hugely important for motivation. But at least tell them, I want you to have a go at this first. They didn't get me the first time, so why would they now? Well, actually, here's a bit of feedback for you. If they didn't understand your first explanation and they haven't done it quite the way that you wanted, well, maybe have that conversation and get some feedback from them about how you might have explained things differently or how things could go differently in the future. So that could be really handy for you and your management skills. Most of the top comments there really, but yeah, we had the avoidance of positive feedback as well. So yeah, I have to give them a pay rise. Money didn't appear in that list of motivation, actually, interestingly. So yeah, money's a demotor if it's wrong, but it's not a motivator in itself. And yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Sometimes actually we think, oh gosh, people want a promotion. Absolutely, there's no space in the firm. That's kind of life. And actually, if there's no promotion opportunity, sometimes people look elsewhere, but actually that's actually just the beauty, I guess, of our profession is that people do have those development opportunities. Keeping somebody in their place because you don't want them to have a big head, I'm not sure that's particularly effective. They should do their job, that's what they get paid for. Yeah, but actually, why not have them keen and motivated and doing the best job they can? Go to their heads. We don't need any divas around here. Well, there's another bit of feedback. If it does go to people's heads and people are being a bit arrogant, there's an impact on other people, and you could have that conversation. No one ever praised me. Well, they should. People need to know when they're doing a good job. They should know when they've done well. We're not over with our praise. That's not in our culture. Classic example, just a few months ago, of a young man, really good trainee of 2 or 3 years in, and he was talking in a group session about how fed up he was of not getting any feedback, and just sometimes he felt he was being patted on the head and saying, oh yeah, good job, good job, thanks, you've done a great job. He didn't know what he'd done well. He was really frustrated that he wasn't getting clear feedback and hard feedback he wanted as well, because he wanted to improve. He wanted to develop, and you only keep good people if you engage with them in their development. Don't know how to do it? Try that 3-step model. What if I get it wrong? Again, still worth having a go. And yes, thanks though is really important. Don't not say thanks, but can you find something specific to say that that person has done? So I could continue, but this is only meant to be a very short bite-sized session. So we've looked at why it's so important, a simple model, and just kind of trying to, I suppose, debug those excuses, because I think sometimes that's what they are. Small steps, though. It's my view that if you make feedback just part of what you do, and don't make a big thing of it, it gets worse when it's all saved up for that 6-monthly review. If it can just be a conversation about every job that's done, okay, how do you think you did? What do you do differently? I really like this bit. What about this, doing this differently? It just becomes part of a normal conversation, and that difficult situation, fear can start to dissipate. Hope that's been useful. We are running a session actually on effective feedback and the appraisal session, because we know for many of you those appraisal development reviews are coming up. And that's, I believe it's on the 4th of December. So just a lunchtime, slightly longer session than this. So be delighted if you wanted to join us on that. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining me for this, and I hope that's been of some use to you. Thank you.